Hello and welcome back to Gabagool and 8. My name is Wes Dawson, and this is a week unlike other weeks, as the structure of this week's episode is a little bit different, a little bit flying off the seat of our pants over here. An episode I like to call Loose as Fuck, or LooseAF, for the purpose of not being demonetized, considering the enormous amount of revenue I make off these posts. Now, normally I'll send myself these little voice clips, basically just to check in, see how I'm doing. Hey Wes, how are you? I'm doing great, big guy. What about you? Don't call me big, you fat-shaming piece of fucking garbage. Don't you talk to me like that, you fucking ignorant piece of shit. Basically, it goes on like that for hours on end, and hidden within this debate are little segments, little ideas I wanted to discuss on certain episodes that I couldn't quite flesh out into something a little more concrete, something a little girthier for the purpose of an entire episode. So what we're left with today, some random thoughts, bits and pieces, basically the podcast equivalent of the short and curly sitting on the edge of your toilet seat. One note was about these startup companies, not being able to have things both ways. Like, you present yourself a certain way, you develop a fan base, you develop a following, you have a nice business model, and all of a sudden they want to kind of retrofit in some PG Disney-esque ideals into that. It doesn't quite work. With OnlyFans recently trying to go public and that kind of backfired epically, they present themselves through their advertisements like they're like a cooking or craft network, that they could be much akin to Netflix, where there's educational videos as well as entertainment. Like, Jesus Christ, you're not an educational tool. Your bread and butter are girls overcharging for shitty softcore porn pictures. Be what you are. That's not a bad thing. I'm not criticizing that. Hell, I encourage it. This new online culture, I tell you, as a single fatherless man, is a wonderful thing to watch unfold. But I mean, the same thing with TikTok. They run these ads as though it's like, oh, it has these helpful life hacks and little kitchen tricks, fun art projects for the kids. But they fail to mention that 95% of their platform is just people like shittily lip syncing to things, making Milli Vanilli look like Freddie Mercury. It's like the 21st century version of the Macarena and a gigantic pedo magnet. TikTok is like a microcosm of the internet. And that's not to say there isn't good parts to it, there aren't good people on it, there aren't fun things. I'm just saying it is like a microcosm of the internet in the sense that, I always maintain the internet as a whole is a gigantic porn mag with some really cool articles in it. TikTok is basically the same, except it's a child porn mag that has some dance routines in it and a lot of plagiarized comedy. You could pick out some good stuff in it, but I think the vast majority of it is kind of questionable content. And also this idea of saying I'm a content creator. Like, I understand where you're coming from, but what the fuck is content creation? Literally, that is the most vague answer you can provide for something. Someone's like, oh, what do you do for a living? Oh, stuff. That's basically what you're saying, because content creation, you could just record nothing. Basically, any recorded material is content. It's like entrepreneurs who don't actually own a business, but tell everyone they're an entrepreneur. No, you're fucking unemployed is what it is. And a lot of stuff online is kind of masked as like this social crusade where really it's just kind of a narcissistic endeavor to try and, appease your own self-validation, I guess. I don't know. Like, is Borat not cultural appropriation? And what about people dressing as Superman for Halloween? I can guarantee you are not fucking Kryptonian, so technically that is appropriation, and I think that should end this year. Yes, sweet, sweet social progress, where somehow segregation is back in the mix and cultural exchange is seen as a bad thing. Now, one thing that certainly gets my panties in a twist is the fact that nothing is real on the internet anymore. Like, there's these obvious fake videos. Basically, any fucking Russian posted video I've seen is the most bogus shit ever online. Like there's these people like in a gym where someone slips on a towel and a girl ends up doing the splits onto some guy's face and somehow that's supposed to be based in reality. Every video is fake now. I think true viral videos like the legitimate, oh my god, I can't believe I caught that, don't really exist anymore. It's crazy how no one seems to notice that there's a guy walking around with like a 4K camera on his shoulder getting all this crazy live footage. We're at a point where sitcoms are more in touch with reality than these raw videos and influencer pranks. People have been harping on pro wrestling since the 80s for duping them, but this shit gets a pass? It doesn't make any sense to me. I really think we need like a real Judge Dredd system. Now, not a Judge Dredd that can shoot and kill or blow up people's stupid looking cars. I'm talking a Judge Dredd that just straight up backhands people. No deaths, no corporal punishment. I'm talking just a swift backhand to remind some people, hey, don't act like a privileged douchebag, okay? We got fellow Canadians trying to turn Canada into like the northern Florida, but with shittier weather and no bikinis. Of course, I don't mean any insult to actual Floridians. I'm talking about, your state spokespeople who are all too often in the news for the craziest of things. And a random note, as if the home shopping network still exists. Like, of all the things that have died due to recent technology and the growth of the internet, as if that is still a thing. That blew my mind. I saw that on. And not only that, but Tony Little is still there selling his crappy sports equipment. It's fucking amazing. All right, well, just to eat up some time, I'm just going to have Mac bark a few times into the microphone. Mac, please come over here. Thank you, Mac, for that precious 4 seconds of content. Well, we've reached the end of this week's episode. Upcoming for next week, I will get my shit together and record a proper episode. I kind of apologize for this week. I was on vacation. Technically, I had no real excuse not to have recorded and banked like 20 episodes and be horribly out of date. Instead, I spent most of my vacation digging a giant hole and thinking about what I have to return to after my vacation. So my name is Wes Dawson. This has been Gabagool Nate. Please listen, like, share, and subscribe. And if this was the first episode of Gabagool Nate you've ever listened to, I beg you, listen to some other ones. Don't let this be the litmus test for why you never listen to another podcast.